folks, now we get to the final chapter in entrepreneurial strategy. This is a summary that basically puts it all together and helps you construct your assignments. Basically, in this lecture, I'm going to run through an example of how you actually formulate the pick two, choose one strategy and use a venture workbook for that. Obviously, your assignments will be more detailed, but this is the way you would organize your thoughts. Recall that your assignment is basically how to take two alternative entrepreneurial strategies for the venture you're looking at. And then basically you want to be able to, if you're doing this in actuality, propose a test to determine which one, or gather information on which one to determine which one you would choose to do initially. The one you choose initially is, of course, plan A. And the one that you do next and keep in reserve is plan B. As is the nature of these things, you never know what's going to happen. You may end up doing both of these in a real venture. The venture we're going to look at is Sheertex. This is one of the more successful ventures out of the last few years of CDL. And it has a very interesting and revolutionary product, as you'll see in this video.
My Sheertex tights never let me down, unless you count this. Yeah, that's real Sheertex. If you work hard to hold it all together, you shouldn't have to worry about your tights falling apart. My life before Sheertex? How? I wasn't wearing the tights. The tights were wearing me, and I wear the tights in this relationship. That's why I switched to Sheertex, the world's toughest sheer tights. Guaranteed. Sheertex tights are strong, durable, and spill resistant. Sheertex is made of a miniaturized version of the fiber found in climbing gear and bulletproof vests.
Science is so strong!
Yeah, all Sheertex sheer tights are tested to be unbreakable in human hands.
But what if I sing? No.
Named Best Tights by Vogue, Best Invention by Time Magazine, and Best Purchase Ever by me. Sheertex are the only tights that can keep up with whatever the day throws at you. If you're ready for a pair of tights that last, click to order Sheertex today.
Plus, they have free shipping.
Intern Madison gets it. She gets it.
She gets it.
Sheertex can withstand victory dances, jagged jewelry, snaggy nails, and claws. Like animal claws. Sheertex is disrupting the tights industry. People aren't putting up with terrible tights anymore. Sheertex is so comfortable, you'll forget you're wearing tights. Traditional tights have waistbands that dig and roll. Sheertex has a yoga-style band that smooths and comfortably hugs every body type. From extra small to 3XL, Sheertex are truly tights for everyone. Plus, they're super cute. Love your Sheertex.
Thanks. Conference call.
Oh, yeah, you too. Sheertex has thousands of 5-star reviews. I've got it 2 o'clock. Take it away, ladies.
Sleek and fashionable.
Sheer, but strong.
The most comfortable tights I have ever owned. Zero regrets.
Okay, people, talking tights. Most tights are guaranteed to rip. Every pair of Sheertex come with a no rip, no tear guarantee.
Guarantee!
Thanks, Sterling.
You're welcome.
Your normal tights don't even last until laundry day. I mean, you can't wash away holes. Cleaning Sheertex is as easy as tossing them in the washer and dryer. Did you know over 1 billion pairs of disposable tights end up in landfills every year? So Sheertex helps you and the planet. For unstoppable tights that won't slow you down, get your own Sheertex at Sheertex.com. See you tomorrow.
Goodbye! Come on! Gosh!
Sheertex, run your world without runs in your tights.
Sheertex's founder was Catherine Hormuth. When she was in her early 20s, she already developed a company and sold it for several $1 million in a completely different area. Catherine was a business student, and she was sitting down with her grandmother, who said, "You want to do something really significant? How about solving the problem of unbreakable tights?" And as you can see from the previous video, that's exactly what she was able to do. So when we have a company like Sheertex, how do we actually do the test two, choose one methodology? Starting at the top here, we're going to use a template to help develop a strategy consisting of our 4 choices of customer, technology, organization, and competition. Then what we're going to do is do it again for a second and distinct set of customer, technology, and organization and competition choices. What you would do after that, which is of course beyond what you'll be doing in your assignment, is you devise an experiment to distinguish between the 2 choices to gather information and understand which one you might move forward with first and which one second. Of course, an experiment might not yield results and you might have to do a bit more experimentation, or you might actually have to go and consider some alternative strategies as well. Test two, choose one is a simple way of characterizing a strategy process that is better than just finding a business plan, but giving you some sort of choice between them. When we're thinking about the choices that an entrepreneur has, we have to actually distinguish between the things that they can't really choose. And the first of those, and perhaps the most important, is their core idea. The core idea is the essential entrepreneurial insight of the venture. It's the thing that the venture understands that no or only a few people do. And when you state your core idea, you must state it in a way that doesn't already foreclose on some of the choices you have. And so the exercise we use there to think about that is, can you state the entrepreneurial insight of this venture without reference to customer, technology, organization, or competition choices? That actually turns out to be quite a challenge. In the textbook, we talk about Uber for dog grooming. Uber for dog grooming, a simple idea to understand, but one that ties the core idea to particular choices, in this case of technology. So what would you do for a company like Sheertex? We know that Sheertex is making unbreakable tights. You've seen that in the video. But the question is, what was their core idea? And that means you have to harness what is it they really came up with? What do they have that no one else has? And what they really had was they had a material, that was unbreakable, lightweight, and water resistant. That's basically what they have. They're therefore a company that is going to find applications of that material. So we write that in here, applications of a material that was unbreakable, lightweight, and water resistant. You'll notice that something interesting about this material really here is a technology. So you ask, hey, aren't they choosing a technology? Didn't that's what you told me not to do with this? That is true. There's technology and there's technology. That doesn't sound very helpful, does it? What I mean is there's technology that's core. There's technology that's the opportunity that arises. When you use AI to build something, or you use the blockchain to build something, what you're using is a new opportunity that has arisen because of a radical new innovation. This is what happened with Sheertex. They were able to take advantage of radical new innovations in materials. And that was the core of their benefit, their venture. And basically, they could choose to put that material in any number of different uses and customers and everything like that. Now, the fact that they're choosing to do unbreakable tights, that was a choice. Point is, what they really have here is a material that has all these great qualities. And once you start thinking of the company in those terms, when you start to evaluate its strategies, you are presented with many more options. The core idea isn't the only immutable thing. There are some other factors that come with a particular entrepreneur that are not going to change as a result of the strategic choices. One is what is driving the entrepreneur? What is their passion? That can be a lot of different things for lots of different entrepreneurs. It could simply be that they like to be entrepreneurial. It could be that they're motivated by money. It could be that they have some broader social. When you do ventures that are in the life sciences, invariably you find the entrepreneur or someone in their founding team has had to deal with a person that they knew, sometimes even themselves, who've been afflicted by whatever condition that venture is designed to find a medical cure or medical help for. So that drives the passion. That's not going to change. And sometimes that's going to be important in guiding the sorts of strategies they want to pursue. The other thing that an entrepreneur has are particular skills. Chris Sarker, an early investor in Twitter, calls it the entrepreneur's unfair advantage. And that is basically the individual perspectives, the resources, the networks, the approaches that might allow the entrepreneurs to have a higher likelihood of success from this specific entrepreneur opportunity. It's interesting, with regard to Sheertex, we have the entrepreneur is someone with a background in business. You might have thought that the entrepreneur may have been someone with a background in material science, but no, those people were brought into the project. So it's an interesting way, I think, in this sense of working this out. Part of the unfair advantage that I think that Sheertex might have, arguably have, is you have an experienced entrepreneur who's been there and done that. And of course, for this particular application, it does not hurt, it seems to me, to have been a woman. Anyway, we can argue and discuss that. It's not an easy topic. It's not something I'm asking you to focus on. That's why in your assignments, it's the core idea that we get the initial draw on. These other things can be important and you can bring them into play if you have knowledge of them, but they're not going to be critical right at this stage. Your entrepreneurial strategy is how you're going to address the opportunity or problem you've identified. And it basically requires a thesis for creating and also capturing value. And it's fairly simple. For each strategy that you assemble, we want you to list the 4 choices, articulate the linkages between the choices because they have to make sense together, state the hypotheses, that's the value creation and value capture hypotheses. And in other words, why do we think this is going to work? And then we want you to put that all together on the entrepreneurial strategy canvas, which of course you have access to. Recall that the 4 choices that you're looking at are our 4 fundamental choices of customer, technology, organization, and competition. So let's see how those 4 choices would fit into some different options that might be available for Sheertex. One thing that Sheertex could have chosen to do, could choose to do, is to build their own brand. That's much like other fashion entrepreneurs, such as Sarah Blakely and Spanx. Built their own brand, did their own manufacturing, sold direct to market. Of course, that's not the only way to go. As we already said, the chief thing that Sheertex has is these advances in materials. One thing they could do is they could go with an existing brand and they could partner with them. That's a good way of bringing in a whole lot of resources you don't have, as we've already seen, and also potentially taking out a competitor. So they might have chosen to partner with, say, Lululemon. Of course, given that they've got advances in materials, and the materials could be used all over the place by many different people, maybe the best idea was to actually license the IP and let other people work out all the other details associated with creating value out of those materials. What Sheertex could then sit back and sit on the royalties from all of that. And the final thing they could do is, of course, they could really invest in manufacturing the materials themselves and selling the materials to other entities. This is what Gore-Tex decided to do in its strategy. And of course, that option was open for Sheertex as well. So let's try to build our strategy for Sheertex. We know actually, given what I've already shown you as a video, they've already decided to have as their first product the unbreakable tights. So that's a choice of customer. They want customers who want tights. Customers who wear tights. And also want them to be tights that are unbreakable. So they value that part. This is pretty important because, as you're going to find out, is that the Sheertex tights cost multiples more than the other tights that are in the market. Of course, those tights aren't as durable. And so this is a more complicated calculation for a consumer to invest in. In terms of the technology, what they're going to do, what are they choosing? They're going to choose various manufacturing processes of how do you design and then make the tights themselves. And as part of that, they've got to also decide as how do they make the materials, if we can think of that as a separate thing. Maybe they outsource that and they design and make the tights themselves. Well, turns out that's what they did. So they decided to outsource initially the materials, the actual making of them, but to make in-house the fashion stuff. And of course, to retail it themselves. Online distribution, that's a bit of a jump here. When you think about it, it's very difficult to sell clothes online. It's not the easiest thing in the world. How do you convey whether something is comfortable, whether it fits, whether it works, what it feels like? But that was a bold decision that they did make. Who are their competition? Well, that's one's easy. Their competition is big tights. I mean that in a pejorative sense. All the other people who make stockings, pantyhose, nylons, all around the world, they are squarely competing with them. They want you to buy Sheertex products instead of what those other companies are selling. And that's definitely where the competition is. What are the basic strengths and weaknesses of all of this? I've already indicated a bit of this, and I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail. Let's just focus a bit on some of the weaknesses. One of the weaknesses is, will people pay? These are more expensive tights to make than the ordinary ones. Will people pay a premium? We don't know. Will people shop online? Will the design be good? Will the materials outsourced be cheap enough? Notice that I'm focusing on the weaknesses. The reason why I focus on the weaknesses is these are all the things that could go wrong. The theory is that none of them go wrong. That's what the venture creation and capture hypothesis. Nothing wrong. Nothing goes wrong. But we don't know. We don't know those things. If nothing goes wrong, that's great. This is good strategy. Big ticks all around. But if any of these things go wrong, what should they do? Now we've got to think about our alternatives. Another way to do the analysis that I just did is to think about the experiments you might do, how you'd implement them, and how you'd work out viability. So in finding out, are people, for instance, going to pay a lot for this product, what would you do? How about asking them to buy it? Doesn't sound too sophisticated, does it? But it's the obvious thing in this situation. And how might you implement that? You might implement that by having your own stalls and other things at fashion shows, or you could implement it another way, like this. Kickstarter. Sheerly Genius, that was the early name of Sheertex, went to Kickstarter in 2018. And they showed their campaign and they wanted to see how many people would be interested in this. They had an initial funding goal of just $10,000 and they ended up raising more than $200,000. And basically that told them how successful this might be as a consumer product, giving you confidence to then say, maybe we should now start manufacturing this stuff and putting it out there and selling it. Also, it gives us another clue. If people are interested enough to speculate on Kickstarter, maybe the online shopping thing isn't going to be a problem. Now, I'm going through this in fairly light detail relative to your assignment. Just remember what your assignments is supposed to do. It's supposed to be useful for the entrepreneur themselves to come to a strategy, but it also has to be useful for helping them explain to others why and what they're doing. So you're going to want your explanation of the choice description and coherence to be more detailed. And you can see some examples of past assignments that have done that. We're imposing a bit more of a word limit on it this year, so just take that into account. We're now at a position where you can start putting this on the canvas. And as I said already, is that the idea of Sheertex was to use strong and lightweight ballistic nylon for clothes that's durable, lightweight, water resistant, etc. The strategy that we've just outlined, without actually saying it, is actually an architectural strategy. The customer is likely to be professional women. The technology is going to be just traditional manufacturing of the stockings themselves. The competition is going to be the incumbent stocking manufacturers. And the resources and capability is to try and emphasize how can we get that high quality product out to consumers in a way that they'll feel confident buying it online. The value creation hypothesis is we're betting on women paying more for stockings that last longer. Otherwise, we can't be in the stocking business here. The value capture hypothesis is that incumbent firms should not be able to easily replicate this. If anyone can use these materials, then the incumbents with their very large markets and distributions and stuff may be able to catch up. In other words, is what Sheertex have made defensible? And that's part of the assumption here. If either of those assumptions turn out to be wrong, they're going to need a different sort of strategy. And to get that different strategy, you've just got to do it again. Now, by doing it again, you can just come up with a different strategy with different choices. But really what you want to do is you want to use the value creation and capture hypothesis and say, okay, suppose one or both of those was wrong. What sort of strategy would we come up with in a world where we knew that? Where we knew that people didn't want to pay too much for the stockings, or the incumbents are going to be able to compete very intensively. What would we do? Again, you've got to come up with 4 distinct choices that will do so. 4 new choices in this case. They'll look very different from the previous ones. And you've got to sit down again and work out what the linkages between them are. So for instance, just to give you an example, the customer will no longer, would you actually be making stockings? It seems to me that if the customer wasn't willing to buy a high-priced stockings, you may decide to take this material and go somewhere else outside of the stocking business. Or if it was an issue of competing with big stocking, maybe actually you could be taking your designs and your new material to those companies and licensing to them or partnering with them. Those are some other options here. And again, you want to think about experiments that will help you understand that, what you'll learn, ideally while you're doing your previous strategy. Here I've filled it out for you with an alternative strategy. It's just one alternative strategy. There are many others. Imagine that Sheertex was going to pursue a value chain strategy as an alternative to the architectural strategy that they're currently pursuing. The customers would be anyone who has uses for strong light materials. You could then manufacture the material, but you wouldn't manufacture it in any old way. You'd have to manufacture it so that people could use it very easily into other production processes. So you have to get standards and you have to really know what those customers, how they're using it. You'll be competing now, not with big stocking, but with other material suppliers. And your resources and capabilities will have to ensure that you'll get a quality product at a competitive price. And so you'll be very focused on the efficiency of your manufacturing process. That would be your business there. The value creation hypothesis would be that these materials, these strong lightweight materials, have lots of variety of uses that make this strategy make sense. The value capture hypothesis is that material competitors would not be able to easily compete with Sheertex for those customers. To summarize, entrepreneurial strategy is choosing among alternative visions for an idea and company. Sheertex ended up with stockings that seem to have started with that, but I can tell you during the process of going through CDL, they did consider all of these other options. Turned out their initial guiding thought was the right one. That doesn't happen for everybody, and it's actually a rarity within CDL. When you have two alternative business plans, you want to think about the differences between them and think about the information you might gather before committing to one or the other of them as your first strategy that will help you choose between them. It gives you some sort of clue between those value creation and value capture hypotheses and which ones might be true. But also you have to be careful because, as we've already emphasized, you do this in the shadow of the paradox of entrepreneurship, which means that sometimes when you do these experiments, you change the options of what strategies you can pursue and choose from. So you have to be very careful about that and very deliberate in your choices. At the end of the day, there is uncertainty. And so you have to choose one. You're going to choose one. When you've got two alternative ones that seem to make some sense, that aren't crazy, you maybe say, how are we going to choose it? Maybe we want to have one match with the passion of the entrepreneur or their unfair advantage, and that tips the balance. Maybe there are other things that do so. Maybe it's the advice and networks that they get into. And you choose. Now, it could be that you don't decide, maybe we need to explore more than two strategies. Obviously, to make things easier in terms of the way we conceptualize your assignment, we're saying at least two. But it may be that you need to do more than that. As for Sheertex, they've gone from strength to strength. They've raised $44 million even during the pandemic when there was lots of work from home. These stockings are flying off the shelves to the extent that they have shelves with an online business. They've had huge successes and fortunate things. Artists such as Lizzo and Taylor Swift have been shown on social media wearing their pantyhose. It didn't come from Sheertex. It just got discovered in the market. Obviously, you can't buy that sort of publicity. So there we have it. That's the sort of process that we want all entrepreneurs to go through, all summed up with all of the materials we've done so far in this course. Your assignment is to do what we want the entrepreneurs to do. Come up for the venture you're looking at, and I know you have only limited information, but that has not been a constraint before. Come up with all the 4 choices that they're currently doing, an alternative set of 4 choices, and a sensible and reasoned approach to how you compare between them. That's the learning outcome from this course.